Okay, so instead of making a video about how to make $1 bazillion and how to efficiently do this and that and the other thing to get all of the money in the world and that stuff, I mean, money is easy to come by. It's less important in this game than other games. Instead, I wanted to try and turn everybody into zombies, and I thought that that would be something that was really really fun. Unfortunately, it has been wildly not fun. I've effectively made my process really really efficient, or at least as efficient as I think it can be, but it requires so much maintenance and buying and organizing shelves that it really becomes less about the fun part of the game, which is dealing the drugs and experimenting with the effects. It becomes less about that. And as somebody on Reddit said, it becomes a restock simulator. It's kind of unfortunate that that's what happened, because I really enjoy this game. Oops. I really enjoy this game, and like finding efficient methods to do things. Unfortunately, efficiency in this game ends up looking like this, where in an empty inventory. So anyway, back to what I was doing here, this efficiency, right? So in order to keep up on the demand, I have this rack and I have my gardeners working on all of these, right? And then ideally they pull resources from the thing and they keep all of the plants like going, right? I'm going to do them a favor here. Oh, you're doing it already? Okay. That they would pull from the shelves, and they would, it's exactly what they do now. They pull from the shelves, they maintain the plants, and they go from here. But the stacks on the materials are so low and the shelves hold so little that you are constantly having to have a backstock of this stuff, and you have to move this into your thing and then move it into the shelf for them to restock the shelf that they can access, because they can't access any other shelf. They can only access one shelf, and that makes it a problem. I'll restock that later, but that's the same thing for all of these. These stack to 10. There's only eight stocks, so you need multiple places of these shelves, and it's kind of a miracle to get all of these going. Actually, anyway, you're having to move these things. I end up doing it at 4 a.m., right? When time stops and you have time to shovel all of this stuff into each storage bin from your backstock. And then it makes it less of a big deal, but you have to restock. You only have to restock this like once a week, maybe once every 5 days or something, and it's not too bad. However, what I do is I have an 8 mix zombie product here, and because I have 8 steps, this is just the grow spot, and I have all of the cocaine that comes out of here, and I load that into the van, and then I head over to the barn. So I'll head there really quick. So here's my barn setup, right? And it's not as bad. I have the 8 mixers that all go around here, but look at this. I have one shelf for each machine that gets fed into the machine, right? And then they pull the coke from these 2 bins and put it into the machine. I have a couple of handlers that take care of that. But every night, because of how fast this goes, did I not put cocaine in there? Oh, here it is. I have to refill 5 slots in each machine, between 5 and 6, in each machine, in order to. I didn't even process all the way through. Oh, that's right. I finished it all last night. So this is the first one that. Anyway, I have to refill all of these each night if I'm keeping up on the demand. And I've been doing this for like 5 hours today. I've been doing this like all day. I spend more time restocking the shelves, buying the stuff from the store, and having shipments brought in, because in order to be efficient, I fill 2 trucks because each one can only hold 320 things, and you can't add one more because you don't have enough slots in the van. So I can only fill 2 of the shelves at any given time, because each shelf holds 120. And because of that, I order 2 trucks of materials which fills 2 shelves each, which leaves me to fill 4 shelves on my own because of the time that it takes for the trucks to make a delivery. Because it's like 5 minutes or something that you have to wait for it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, and so 100 for that also, and that sends it here. And I have to wait 6 minutes for that to show up. And I'm not going to just sit around and do that, right? So during that 6 minutes, I go and I get the back end of stuff. I would go and pick up beans and the horse goo and the batteries and all of this stuff. And I'm driving back and forth, on the van with the van, because I usually haul the at 4 a.m. I haul the cocaine away from the docks and bring it to the barn and do all of the restocking stuff, and then go back to the docks and make sure the plants are ready in the morning, and then sleep and do it the next day. But I spend way too much time restocking the shelves instead of doing the funner part of this game, which is delivering the stuff. And so on top of that, my original plan was to not worry about money and try and make as many of the denizens of this town all zombies, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't really work that well. The effects, because I'm forced to do all of my dealing at night. Well, not all the time. Well, the majority of the time, like now. The effects wear off in the morning. They don't last through the entire day. And so I can't make the entire town a town full of zombies, which is sad for this video, so I can't do what I wanted to do. But also, in trying to do that, in trying to be as efficient as possible with this stuff, it turns out that it really is a restocking simulator. And as fun as this game is, in the early stages when you're not worried about that sort of thing, it's a lot of fun. But as soon as you reach this end game and you have your automation set up, it becomes less about the automation. It's the graveyard. It becomes less about doing the fun parts of this game, like setting up the machines and getting the right products to the right people. She wants to, and these effects of these people walking around town, right? And that's another thing. A lot of these people, they're not even wandering around town. They're inside these buildings. You don't even see them on the streets. The only people you see on the streets are the transients. Oops. Oh yeah, and I locked all the cops over there. I saw this on Reddit too. I just put the car up front, and so they're all trapped. Anyway, there's only a few of them that wander the streets, when they're going for their deals and stuff, but they're not. There's actually, by the bridge over here, there's a pair of people who will stop and talk every once in a while, but you don't see that kind of life around town. So these effects on the NPCs is less of a big deal, because these people aren't even on the streets. With these effects going on, and it's too bad. It's a shame. And so I just wanted to whine about that a little bit. But here, now that I'm all done with that, here's how this automation problem, this restocking simulator problem, can be fixed. And it's actually really, really, it's simple, but I don't know how simple it's going to be to code, right? First, there are two things. Oh, that's completely empty. There are two things. One, some of these items in shelves, maybe not in your pockets, right? Maybe not in your pockets, but in the shelves, they should have higher stacks. Not 10, maybe 20, depending on how fast that they're used, right? Stacking the fertilizer and the soil up to 10, I think it could go up higher. I think it could go up to 20 to solve this problem. The second issue, the second and probably the most important thing, is if you have multiple materials on a shelf, like if I had all 3 of these fertilizer things on this shelf and the soil, right? I had 2 of each. If the NPCs could recognize which ones are which, and you could tell the shelf, or you could tell the NPC which products to pull from a particular shelf. Or, okay, so before I go there, if you can tell them which to recognize which materials are which. Because like there were times with meth where you had the acid and the phosphorus in the in a main shelf, and then you told an NPC that this was their supply shelf. If they pulled things from this, you would wind up with a chemistry station that was full of acid, and that it would lock up because they wouldn't put phosphorus in there because they just fill it up with acid. They don't know what the recipe is and they don't recognize it, and they just dump the first materials that they have in there. So having the NPCs be a little bit smarter about what materials they're pulling from shelves and then what they're putting into the plants or into the whatever they're working on would be better. You see, like this, what just happened, right? How cool would this moment be if he was like the zombie and he was kind of chasing you down? Hey man, I need another fix. That would be pretty cool. And it would happen if these effects lasted throughout the day. I don't think so, never mind. Yeah, you get mad. Now, I was thinking that maybe I had a thought about having bigger shelves, but I can't remember the justification that I had for that. So, with bigger shelves, you could put more things in it, obviously, but in conjunction with the NPCs being smarter about what they're pulling from shelves, you could put your entire 8 combination recipe into a shelf, and then the NPCs could pull out the recipe, pull out the ingredient, and put it in the proper machine in the proper order. That would take your distribution time, your stocking time down. This would also fall in line with having the workers be able to pull from trucks and put the materials in the correct machine. I think this is something that this is an automation that Soulmask has, where you can tell them where to put things and what chests have what materials, and it's a very smart system. I really, really like the automation in Soulmask, and it's something that I think that they would benefit from if it was possible to implement that in this game. But I'm not sure that would work. Somebody got juiced. I don't know what the right solution is, but playing the game, right? This becomes the main part of the game. Distributing the resources. Oh wait, maybe I need a handler here. Into the proper shelves, and that becomes a problem. It becomes less fun, and it becomes maintenance. And I'm very glad that I just recently unlocked Uptown, because I don't really want to worry about getting these last people, because I'm just treading water at this point, and because the automation isn't really there. And I know that this is you're supposed to be kind of hands-on with this, and I get it, but at the same time, it needs to be fun still. I mean, that's the fun part of this game, like setting up these the organization, setting up the flow, the workflow of what you're doing, of your empire, so all of these things flow nicely. That's the idea behind all of these kinds of resource management games. And when I'm doing this the whole time, restocking shelves, it becomes less about the fun of the game and more of that restock simulator that they mentioned. And I can't get those words out of my head, because once I reached this point, once I optimized my setup to churn out this zombie mix to the population in hopes that I could turn the town into zombies, I was getting bored of just restocking the shelves, and I was Oblivion dropped, which was a game that I would much rather be playing right now. And that's, it's something I did to myself, but I wanted to try and finish this project. But once I got to this point, I realized how kind of boring it was, and that's too bad. And I know that mods exist, and I'm sure that I could find mods that take care of a lot of these problems that I'm having with the game. But the game itself should ideally would have the quality of life stuff necessary to make the game fun. And once, if mods have to make the game fun, if mods aren't there to maybe add new effects, new drug effects, or to give NPCs a different look or add different clothes to the game, simple things like that. If you're using mods, if players are using mods to try and fix the quality of life issues in the game, it needs to be called out. And hopefully, this one-man show can find a direction and maybe get some help in making this game better. Because I mean, in a game that is as simple as this, we can't expect a whole lot. We're not going to expect any kind of quest line. Maybe we're going to get Uncle Ned out of the Fed. I mean, that'd be kind of neat. Just something. But it's a simple game and made by one person, and so it's not really fair to, lay the same amount of critique or blame, I guess, onto somebody making something like this. But if we're talking longevity and ease of access, ideally you'd want to be able to set up. Okay. Let's do this. Let's look at this. The next update, right, is supposed to have. I can't even see it. Oh, I think that's it. Okay. So in a future update, we're supposed to have access to this mansion up here, right? And it's going to have a colossal amount of space. And I don't want to think about how much restocking is going to be necessary. David the gnome. That's funny. I don't want to think about how much restocking is going to be necessary to keep up the automation in a building this big. Right? How many times you're going to have to go up and down stairs between rooms? How many times you're going to have to shuffle things between shelves? How much loading space is for how many loading docks you might have? This thing, while it sounds cool to set up, to actually run on a regular basis, on a daily basis, is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a nightmare unless some of these automation issues are made so they flow better. They don't need to be easier. They don't need to be easier because this game is very simple, right? And setting up the process, the automation is very fun and it's very intuitive to a degree. But once you get to this point, once you have your setup and you want to make a pricey mix so you're making as much profit as possible, once you get to that point, you're stuck restocking shelves at an unreasonable pace on a daily basis. You spend 5 minutes you spend 5 minutes running around dealing your stuff, and then you spend like an hour restocking shelves. And as fun as this game is, restocking shelves is not my idea of a good time. So my zombie utopia is gonna have to be put on hold until either I install some mods that extend the duration of some of these effects on the NPCs, and some other quality of life things that will make the automation easier. So yeah, until then, until I figure out that, I'm done playing this. But that was my automation. Actually, how about a quick rundown of the automation, right? All right, so starting at the base, I have 16 plants, and I split up the botanists to run on 4 plants each. This way, they have less time. The plants have less time to dry out. They have less time to wait before they get sprayed with stuff. This way the botanists can be more efficient. And then I run each of the plants goes to a separate drying rack. So I have 16 drying racks also. And I'm pretty sure they're all set up. Yeah. And this way it splits up the load. Because if I have one botanist doing all of the drying racks, that can work, but the bottleneck becomes the one gardener doing all of the plant, all of the pots, because we want all three of the fertilizers in each plant. They have to be watered, and they have to be seeded, and all of that stuff. And the amount of time that one pot takes to do that, the other pots aren't growing as quickly as they could, or as efficiently as they could be. And so I split up. Each botanist does 4 plants and 4 racks, and the four racks that they do are tied to the 4 plants that they do. So once those get into the racks, I send the racks down into a single shelf, which is what you saw me set up before. And then from here, I have 2 handlers, one for the right and one for the left side. Shuffle the leaves from each side into each of the cauldrons. And if I did this right, I should have gotten rid of the bottleneck. But I think at this point, the bottleneck becomes my gardeners. I may have to try. I don't think it'll work, but I may have to try making each botanist do all of the plants and then one botanist doing all of the racks. If this bottleneck, if I don't get enough leaves in these areas to do that, and the leaves constantly are stuck in the drying racks, I'll shift that. But we may not have to worry about that. From here, they go into the cauldrons, and then the chemist will take care of those. Each cauldron goes into its own oven. This way, the timing on all of them, they're not creating a bottleneck and nothing's getting stuck. From the ovens, from each of them, they go out here to these last 2 shelves. And then I don't worry about picking these up until the end of the day. I'll load them up into the trunk and then ship it off to the barn. And the barn is where I have the mixing stations. Okay, so once I come in and I drop off the van full of Coke, I drop it off into this left storage thing. I went with 2 storage bins because I assumed the plants would be making more cocaine than they were. I added the 2 cauldrons, so I guess we'll see what that looks like in a couple of days. But for now, I loaded into the first bin. A handler brings this, moves them over from this shelf to this shelf, and then they just go down the line. The Coke gets moved from here into the first machine, and the ingredient gets shoveled into this machine. The machine sends the Coke all the way down the line as they get finished, just from machine to machine. So the chemist is the one who's moving them all the way down into the finish line, into that shelf over there. Each handler has the 4. Each handler has the shelves feeding the ingredient into the shelf that's next to it. This also keeps everything in line, and I know which order everything is in. Now I have a backup supply of all of the same ingredients, which also helps me keep track of the order all of these are supposed to be in. And if I get and if there's a hiccup where for some reason I didn't put enough materials in, or something gets skipped, I can just move materials from here to fill the gap and finish anything that they need. And then I don't have to worry about a delay. And then at 4 a.m., I can just order what's missing from the shelves and fill them this way. So that kind of takes care of any gaps there. From here, I just have one shelf being fed into 2 of these packaging things. I'm finding that Coke isn't going to be sold. Oh, I need to take the Coke to the other dealers. I'm finding that these guys only buy like 1 or 2 Coke at a time. So putting them into jars is probably not a good idea. So I'm going to have to stock up on bags and then make sure that I'm doing those instead of jars. But for now, I can just use the jars and give them to the dealers. But from this machine, they get fed over here. And then depending on how fast they're made and who gets to the product first, it's either made into a brick or it's thrown into a jar. And then I send them out. And it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. I forgot where I put my stuff. And yeah, the mix that I do is this Omega Rot, Foggy, Tropic Thunder, Electrifying, Cyclops, Bright-Eyed, Glowing, Long Face, and Zombie with a base sell price of $7.29. I've been having, I thought I wanted to try and sell like 5 at a time, but nobody can afford that. So I just lowered the price to 700, and I'm just hoping that that I'm doing this right. I might check out one of those videos that say, you know, make 50 grand a week or whatever, because then this might be worth it. But for now, this is kind of where I'm at. And they can't buy very much Coke. So I might do something a little different. If I can't get them to buy more, that's that. But, you know, that's the setup. And it's really simple. And I make more than enough for all of my dealers to sell out, or not sell out, to sell what they can. So it's not, you know, it's not anything outlandish or crazy. The only hard part about this is literally restocking the shelves. But I guess that's my overview of my setup, my thoughts on the process, and my hopes for the game in the future. I don't think I have anything else to say. You're welcome.